Hello! Today, I will present how discrimination does exist in Mexico. When we think about discrimination, we often imagine clear and direct actions. However, I believe that in Mexico, discrimination is frequently less visible, yet deeply embedded in social structures, such as ethnicity, language, physical appearance, or other social characteristics. In my opinion, understanding discrimination requires going beyond what is immediately visible. It isn't only about explicit acts of exclusion or offensive behavior, but also about the systems, structures, and norms that shape people's opportunities in unequal ways. First, ethnic and indigenous discrimination in Mexico is systemic. Mexico is home to 68 recognized indigenous peoples and more than 364 linguistic variants. This reflects a rich cultural diversity. However, I think it is important to recognize that this diversity coexists with deep inequality. Despite constitutional protections, indigenous communities continue to face limited access to education, healthcare, justice, and employment. According to the National Survey on Discrimination, Hernández 2017, 29% of indigenous respondents reported that their rights are not respected at all. This percentage is significantly higher compared to the non-indigenous population. To me, this is a clear indication that discrimination isn't only about individual attitudes, but also about how institutions function. For example, in legal processes, many indigenous people do not have access to interpreters, which directly affects their right to fair trial. In addition, indigenous children in urban areas are often placed in the lower quality schools, which limits their future opportunities and reinforces cycles of poverty linked to ethnic identity. In my view, these are not isolated cases, but patterns that reveal structural inequality. Second, colorism and appearance-based discrimination are part of social inequality. I personally find this aspect especially revealing, because it shows how discrimination can operate in subtle but powerful ways. In Mexico, lighter skin is often associated with success, beauty, and social status. As a result, lighter-skinned individuals are more represented in positions of power, in media, and in higher-income sectors. On the other hand, darker-skinned individuals are more likely to be concentrated in low-wage jobs and have less visibility in public life. A study made by Alberto Villarreal, published in the American Sociological Review, found that even when people have the same level of education and the same occupation, those with a lighter skin tend to earn more than those with darker skin. In my opinion, this is very significant, because it shows that inequality is not only based on effort or on merit, but also on physical appearance. I also believe that media and advertising play an important role in reinforcing these ideas, by promoting Eurocentric beauty standards that exclude a large part of the population. Third, language-based discrimination silences millions. According to the 2020 census, approximately 7.4 million people in Mexico speak an indigenous language. However, many public services, including courts, hospitals, and government offices, operate almost entirely in Spanish. In my view, this creates significant barriers, especially for elderly or rural populations who may not speak Spanish fluently. I think it is important to understand that this isn't just a matter of communication, but of dignity and rights. When a person cannot defend themselves in court, receive medical attention, or complete administrative processes in their own language, they are effectively excluded from full participation in society. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has identified this as a structural violation of the right to equality and non-discrimination. To me, what makes this type of discrimination particularly complex is that it doesn't always appear as intentional harm. Instead, it looks like routine procedures or standard practices. However, its impact is real and deeply unequal. In conclusion, I believe that discrimination in Mexico is real, complex, and deeply rooted in social structures. Recognizing its existence isn't about assigning blame, but about understanding reality in order to create change. In my opinion, acknowledging these forms of inequality is a necessary step towards building a more just, inclusive, and respectful society.